Oh, yeah.
Good, we're away.
Thank you, Papa Nui. Kia ora koutou. I'll just open our meeting with a karakia tīmatanga. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te ata kura, te tio, te huka, te hauhunga, haumie, huie, tae ki e. Right, kia ora koutou. Thank you everybody for taking the time to join us today, and apologies for the slight delay in our meeting start, but it's good to be here. So I will open the meeting and we will head to item 1, which is our housekeeping. Just a little reminder, I think everyone's pretty savvy now on the Zoom, but if you are not speaking, to please be on mute. When we are looking for motions to be moved with a vote, if you can, there's a thumbs up you can do, or you can flick your camera on and raise a hand. Just give me a signal, you know, if you are in support or not, so I can see that. Item 2 is our apologies. And Erica, did you have apologies that you wanted to table?
Kia ora, Chair. Yes, NRC CEO Malcolm Nicholson has declined the meeting, along with Thomas Hohaya.
Thank you. And we have Anna Murphy joining us, but she may need to leave the meeting along the way. So thank you, Anna.
Snow Tane will also be coming in late.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much. So do I need to move and second the apologies? I do? Okay, sorry. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those apologies? Thank you, Deloraine. Moved by Deloraine. Seconded by... I can't see anybody. Can I second it? I'll second it.
Yeah, you can. Sorry, I was just going to say, has Mayor Smith dropped off?
Looks like he might have.
Okay.
Yeah, and we might be having a few technical issues today. Something about the internet's a bit funny, so we'll just do our best. So that's moved by Deloraine and seconded by myself, and all in favour. Anyone against? Okay, cool. Thank you. That's carried. Declarations of conflict of interest is item 3, and we'll just take those as they arise throughout the agenda. So if there's any issue, please just let us know. I would like to now raise a supplementary item for the agenda, which was sent around to everybody by email earlier today, and apologies for the late addition of this item, but hopefully we can work through it today. So hopefully everyone's received the email and had a chance to read it. Oh, kia ora, Fiona. We're actually just trying to receive the supplementary item which was sent around earlier today. So as permitted under section 46A7 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, we can bring in supplementary items. And so there's a recommendation there that the additional amendment to the Joint Committee Adaptation Committee Terms of Reference is added into our agenda for today. So I'm just hoping to get a mover and seconder who's happy to have that item added to our agenda. Cool. Fiona's happy to move. And seconded by Rose. Yep, seconded by Rose. Can Rose be a seconder if we've got Deloraine present? Sorry, procedural thing. Okay.
No. Oh, Deloraine, it is, yeah, Deloraine, put Deloraine down as the primary. Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora, Rose, though, thank you, but we have to do Deloraine, but awesome. Yep. Okay, and so all in favour, if you can just raise a hand or give me an eye.
Sorry, Amy, Dave Clendon here. This is news to me that there's I'm just looking in my email now and I see there is an item there, but I've got no idea what it is.
Okay. Well, we will have a chance to discuss the item if we get it into the agenda. So if you're comfortable with that, we could, I don't know what you want to do. Would you like to have a moment to just have a quick read of what the item is?
Well, perhaps you could just. Okay, so it's. Sorry, I just think it's very. I noticed the email was sent out about 11 o'clock this morning, 2 hours before our meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very good practice, I have to say. I think it's very poor practice with due respect to all concerned, but it's very hard to make a decision on anything without prior notice. And I do push back against these sort of things being thrown in at the last minute. So yeah, I guess I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, sure, that's fair. Mayor Smith, did you have a comment?
Yes, kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I haven't seen this item at all. Sorry. So again, I can't support its inclusion into the agenda because for all those same reasons that Dave says. And what I was doing up until 10 minutes ago was chairing the Northern Mayoral Forum all of today. So you all knew that was going on. So it's very odd. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Smith. Yeah, understand completely. Okay, so that's a bit of a signal. Do others view it differently, or Delorraine, do you have an opinion on?
Yes, having had the opportunity to read the additional item, but also hearing what the two other members have said, I guess we probably should defer this item given that it is a late inclusion and it's important that everybody does have the opportunity to read and understand it. Even though I support it, I think it's important that everybody has the opportunity to do the same, to read and then make an informed decision.
Kia ora. Okay, thank you for that, Delorraine. Yep, kia ora, Fiona.
Kia ora tātou. I think I'm just quite keen for it to be tabled, and as Delorraine said, deferred. So that was probably my thinking around that, given that not a lot of people have been able to read it, but at least it's sort of presented on. But I'll leave it to the rest of the committee.
Okay. Victoria, do you have an idea for how best we can proceed given that feedback?
Would like to defer the item, then of course that's what we'll do. Just a bit of background and apologies for the late item. It actually referred to an action point on the action sheet around not discharging the committee during the triennial elections, and we're not aware that it needed to go into the terms of reference prior to some information that came to light on Friday. So because we were looking to adopt the terms of reference or endorse the terms of reference today for adoption by the member councils, we thought it might be an opportunity to be able to table it at the same time. But we're happy for the committee to defer to a future meeting if they would like to.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have had a chance to read it, but I understand the hesitation that comes from those who haven't. And given that the terms of reference is a document that can be updated as we go, it's a document that can be, once it's endorsed, it can be updated along the way. So I think there's no, unless Victoria, there's any major timeline issue with that, I think we can just probably defer it so that everybody's comfortable that they've had a chance to read the information.
Yep, if the terms of reference, the current terms of reference that are in the agenda item 6.1 are endorsed today, that was for adoption then to the member councils, and then at the next Joint Climate Change Committee we'd have to bring this supplementary item through the agenda in time, in the right manner, and then it would have to go back to be endorsed by this committee and then back through the member councils again, or we just wait to go through the member councils after the next Joint Climate Change Committee. So that's the timeline before the triennial election period.
Okay. I'm confident that we've got time to deal with it in a way that means everybody can give it, you know, due consideration. So if that's the case, do we, sorry, just going back to the actual procedural process. So do we just take a vote? I put it to the vote whether, yeah, Deloraine?
It's a little bit of a messy process, and it's a coach and caboose kind of situation that one is contingent on the other. Isn't our next meeting, our next joint committee meeting, scheduled for, am I right, might it be August? And then of course the elections follow in September, so it's a tight, even though it doesn't seem like a tight time frame, it can be for the toing and froing that needs to happen to get it across the line. Am I right, Victoria?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I was just looking up the next meeting date, because for it to be adopted by the member councils before the election period, we might miss the timeline. Just looking up the next meeting date.
Yeah.
I'll just have a quick check. You probably do know the date already. Is it August?
Oh, I have a sense that it is August.
Yep, I'll just check.
Which will put the time frame under considerable pressure for us to get this over the line, so that this committee doesn't then need to be disbanded at the time of the local elections.
End of May. Does the election period start in July?
Sorry, is it May is our next meeting? Does that
May, yeah. Sorry, yeah, it's in May. The next joint committee meeting's in May, and then it would have to go through there and then back to the member councils for adoption before the election period.
Well, there's probably enough time then.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I am comfortable with it. I guess the only thing I would say before we take the vote on whether or not we receive the item is that receiving it just enables us to discuss it. And so whether or not we make a decision on it today, it's potentially useful to have a bit of discussion, you know, as we just have had some now. Because at the end of the day, this committee will only endorse the terms of reference, which then need to go to each council to be, you know, formally adopted. So while understanding and you know, respectful of the pressures that it puts people under when things get added at the last minute, I guess just, you know, because we meet infrequently, it is good if we can move through items efficiently. But that's, yeah, I can see both sides. So what I'll do is I'll just go back to the item. Sorry, I'm just working on multiple screens. And see if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive the supplementary report and add it to the agenda. So Fiona's happy to move that. Anyone happy to second? Yep, Deloraine is happy to second it. So then, well, I would like a show of hands for those who are in favour, just so I can keep track. So those in favour. Thank you, Anna. And then those who are against. So that's David. Yeah, and Mia Smith. Okay. So that is, by my calculations, 4 in favour, 2 against. Is that what you're saying, Victoria, too? Sorry, keeping track of the screen.
Yes.
Which means it's carried, but we have another opportunity to discuss it and decide the next steps in the actual item itself. So we will add it to the agenda. Thank you. Okay, sorry, just go back to the main agenda. So, moving on to item 4.1, the confirmation of minutes. So there's just one recommendation there, that the minutes of the Joint Climate Change Adaptation Committee meeting held on 29th November 2021 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Can I have somebody move and second that be happy with the minutes? Thank you, Delaraine. And there a seconder who was present at the meeting? I'll second it. All in favour?
I support.
Anyone against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, David. I can see your thumbs up. Were there any matters arising from those minutes that anyone wanted to speak to before I move on? Thank you, Anna. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to item 5.1, the receipt of the action sheet. And so, yeah, just the one recommendation that we receive the action sheet. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, Mayor Smith. And seconded by, oh, kia ora. Thank you, Fiona. All in favour?
Aye.
Awesome. Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Before I go to questions, just on the action sheet, I'm just wondering if Victoria, if there was anything in particular that you wanted to highlight for the joint committee.
Okay, there's just the two items that are not completed to date. Action point 4 was in reference to the supplementary item today, and item 8 was the changes, the minor changes that were approved at the last committee meeting, and the distribution of an updated strategy, which was completed.
Thank you. Kia ora, Anna, Councillor Murphy.
Kia ora. I can't resist, even though I'm really sick. I have to join in. Just a question there on that meeting schedule. I see, and maybe it's been updated, I might be missing something here, but I don't see the meeting in May. I just see the one in August. So just wondering, Victoria said there would be a meeting.
We've got it on our council calendar, but I can go back and just double check that. I will confirm with the committee if there's a meeting in May or whether the next one is August. Yeah.
Thank you, Victoria, and good eagle eyes there, Anna.
Through you, Madam Chair, it is in the middle of the report, Monday the 30th of May, in item number 5 on the meeting schedule.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So it's called milestones, in the milestone, just before the green box. So it is there indicated, Monday the 30th of May at 1 p.m. Face to face. Woo! Does that mean COVID will be over? Well done, Whangarei District Council. Thank you for bringing an end to the COVID. That'll be awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yes, that will be good. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mayor Smith. Did anybody else have any questions on the table of actions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for that. Righty ho, so we'll move on to item 6.1. We're on page 11 of the agenda, and this is the adopting the terms of reference. There are 3 recommendations here. I will take it as read, that people have read what's in the paper, and just wondering if we are happy to take all three together to move forward with this, or if people would like to split them up. And mindful that we do have the supplementary item, but we were going to treat that completely separately. So get this one item done, and then treat that supplementary item, which also refers to the terms of reference, as a separate piece, acknowledging that it's late to the party. So looking for a mover, please. Kia ora, Deloraine. Are you happy to move all three items, that we receive it, and then also the 2 recommendations from staff? Kia ora. Okay, thank you. So Deloraine's happy to move all three, just looking for somebody to second that.
Yep, I'm happy to second that.
Kia ora. Thank you, Anna. And so should we have a bit of discussion? I guess, Victoria, would you like to speak to this before I open up for questions?
I was actually going to ask Katie to speak to it. Katie actually wrote the agenda item, and I just put it in the system. So Katie's happy to speak to this.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Tēnā koutou. Yeah, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Happy Monday all. So yeah, I did draft it. My pen, as a pen NRC staff, I guess you could say my pen name. I do want to apologize. There is one typo that I would like to make clear, and it's under the disadvantages on page 11. It says that if the Joint Committee does not endorse the terms of reference, the disadvantage is that the Joint Committee arrangements are consistent, and that should read inconsistent. That is a very important typo, but then I'll go back into the report. I just wanted to make that clear before I started talking. So aroha mai for that typo. So yes, the terms of reference has come to the Joint Committee a couple of times now. Most importantly, back in April, where it was the Joint Committee received a revised version of it to meet all the different councils' different stages at their non-elected member remuneration policy development, and also an attempt to reach greater consistency with our remuneration of our non-elected members, specifically our iwi and hopu representatives. So the Joint Committee asks that we go back, we take a second look specifically at NRC's policy. That has been done to a degree. I can't speak too much to NRC's policy review process. I do know now what has happened is that the cap of meeting remuneration for non-elected members for NRC has been raised to 240. The key issue was that there was a significant gap previously between that and what Whangarei District Council is remunerating their non-elected members. It is closed somewhat at a remuneration cap for non-elected members at 240 compared to 280. So there's still inconsistency, but it is much less significant. And as the report says, WDC is waiting to review their policy post 2022 elections. That is the work that's been done till this point to present the report. And what will happen next, as you all know, is if the terms of reference are endorsed by the Joint Committee, we will take it back to our respective member councils for adoption, at which point the committee will be aligned and consistent with the requirements under the Local Government Act for a standing committee. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you very much, Katie, for that. So thank you, Deloraine. I'll go to you first, and then you, Mayor Smith. You're on mute, Deloraine.
Kia ora. This item's been hanging around for a little while, go round and round in the ether, and it's as difficult as a hapu rep to be able to try and one, get traction, two, get conclusion to it when we're working with WDC, NRC in different roles. While this addresses the meeting fee, it doesn't address any other additional work, research, reading, etc. that needs to be done that as a consequence of the meeting agendas and what have you. So I just want to flag that it's hard as a hapu rep to try. We spend so much time on this stuff instead of actually spending the time on the mahi that we want and need to do. So thank you for the progress here, but I just want to flag that in fact it's a piecemeal approach we're taking here. Fortunately, I come under WDC and they have agreed to an hourly rate and a meeting rate so that we are covered for all of the work that we do. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Delorraine. Mayor Smith?
Unmute. Kia ora koutou. It's in the wording of recommendation number 3 here, which is very, very blunt. And I would like to propose that the mover and seconder consider an adjustment to recommendation number 3 here to read that the joint committee recommend the revised terms of reference be put to each member council for consideration and adoption. It's the same, but it's very, very different. So I'll read that again. So that the joint committee recommends the revised terms of reference be put to each member council for consideration and adoption. So I can explain the reason for that further, which is just simply the way it's written sounds like this joint committee is coming with a big stick and says this will happen. And knowing the local councils which want to be able to make fair decisions on behalf of their people, they need to take their worldview. So it's a top down and a bottom up, and we need to meet in the middle. So that's why I'm suggesting that word change. I don't know if someone from the admin, I'm seeing a thumbs up there. So Madam Chair, that's back to you, please, for your mover and your seconder here. I can read it again if you wish.
I've got it written down. Thank you, Mayor Smith. I think that's a good change to the wording. So our mover was Lorraine, and the seconder, I think, if I'm right, Erica, was Councillor Murphy. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Are you happy with the amendment to the wording, Anna?
Could I just get you to read it one more time for me, please?
So this is recommendation 3 to be amended to read that the joint committee recommend the revised terms of reference be put to each member council for consideration and adoption.
Yep, that's fine with me. I'm happy with that as seconder.
Cool. And Delorraine, you gave us a thumbs up, didn't you? Kapai? Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Smith. Does anybody else have any comments or questions that they'd like to raise? Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Katie, for that. And Delorraine, just in response to what you raised, just yeah, hearing that in a lot of spaces right now. So understand where you're coming from and agree that we're just taking small steps on quite a big journey. But in the meantime, it's good to get this tidied up and yeah, closer to being formalised the way it needs to, given how long we've been functioning. Cool. So I'll just look for a vote there, all in favour of those recommendations, including the amendment. Kia ora. Thank you, David, Anna, Mayor Smith. Kia ora. Yep, awesome. Thank you. So that's carried. Alrighty. Just scrolling through. So the next item is item 6.2 on page 16, the joint strategy update. We've got 2 recommendations here. I might, yeah, I think we probably can take these two together, that we received the report and that the foreword is included. So just to be clear, while the whole strategy is in there, we're actually, this recommendation is just about the inclusion of the foreword, which was excluded when we endorsed the strategy collectively last year. So it's a foreword there from myself and from Deloraine, and there's a summary blurb as well. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for this, then I'll ask Jan to speak to it. Thank you. Fiona's happy to move. And thank you, Mia Smith, as the seconder. Right, Jan, are you happy to just speak to this briefly?
Yeah, I'll keep it very briefly, Kia ora. It is very brief. It's just, so we changed the items that were identified in the November meeting. So that's been updated in accordance to the recommendations. And then the only other thing really, as you said, Councillor, is the inclusion of the forwards by your good self and by Deloraine. So the rest is unchanged really. So this is like the draft final, I think that we can call it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. So any questions?
David
Yes,
here. Sorry.
I'll go to Mayor Smith first because he was quick with his hand up, and then I'll come to you next, David.
Sure.
Kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a point, and Fiona Kemp, I'm going to ask you to please answer here and come into this, what I'm about to ask. So on page 20, the signatory page, and we have the councils listed, and then we have, for example, whangarei hapu iwi, and then kaipara hapu iwi. And I'm just going to talk, and so what I'm talking about here is about rohe, and I'm talking here about takiwā, because when, for me, you say kaipara hapu and iwi, that includes Ngāti Manuhiri and ngā maunga whakahi o kaipara, who are part of kaipara hapu and kaipara iwi. Now, I'd like to remind everyone that Kaipara College is at Helensville. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about here. So ngā maunga whakahi o kaipara is there, okay, and Ngāti Manuhiri comes with the Hōtio River into the kaipara. So when I'm just suggesting that these words are clearer around the definitions of who we're talking about or who we may not be talking about. So you might want to say somehow kaipara district hapu iwi. I'd really like to hear from Fiona Kemp on this matter. It's a boundary, it's a geopolitical boundary, takiwā rohe issue. And I just want it to be really clear, because I note that we also have the Kaipara Moana Treaty Settlement, which involves the Kaipara Uri. And the Kaipara Uri includes ngā maunga whakahi o kaipara, yeah, and Ngāti Manuhiri. So, yeah, kia ora. Can someone help make sense of that for me? Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you. Sorry, I was going to call you your worship, but I'm used to it.
You may call me your worship. Yeah.
I've worked with judges, so I'm kind of inclined to go that way. That's actually a great point to make. I've actually got to agree with his worship that I actually did take it when I first looked at this as kaipara, as an association with Kaipara district, but I think maybe the district word needs to be included. You know, he tikata tō whakaro e hoa, he kaipara nanui is quite a big catchment, which actually doesn't not involve, it even stretches as far up the upper catchment and into whangarei. So if we're looking at that from that perspective, I think that's the only, and I take your point that it can be read as kaipara nui tonu, but I think if the word district is put in, then it makes a direct association to the council's boundary, not our rohe boundaries. if that makes sense. Yeah. But Snow's on board as well. He might be able to add to the whakaaro if he wishes as well. But it's more our association with Kaipara District Council opposed to a rohi description. Hope that's helpful.
Kia ora, Fiona, that is really helpful. Yeah, I'm just looking to you to see if that is possible to just make that small addition of wording.
Yeah, we can do it, or we can, once it's the strategy itself is, I think we're there, the front page of signatures, that we can always adjust it when it gets to the council, I guess. I don't know what that protocol is, but it's not difficult to put an additional word in there, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, kia ora, Fiona, did you want to say something else?
Sorry, I was actually going to add to that. Yeah, just a wording, because Uri Oho actually sits in the whāngarei hapu iwi as well, so we're all over the place. So I think the clarification of whāngarei district hapu iwi, however they want to interpret that'll be good. And I've just got the heads up from Snow that he's happy with that interpretation as well. Kia ora.
Kia ora. And I can see for NRC they've used the term representatives, and so we might want to think about if that's the right, if it's useful to have that in there too, to show that it's yeah, through the council, a representative member. But I'm happy for staff to sort that. Oh yeah, kia ora, Deloraine.
Yeah, kia ora. This one is a bit of a tricky one. It just depends what we're trying to achieve, I think, because often as hapu are dissected by several councils, and my own hapu, is that's an annoying feature that we have to deal with. In this instance, I think it will not create further harm necessarily, but gives us the opportunity to be clear about who we're talking to. But I just want to make it clear that it doesn't work. The argument doesn't work all the time.
Yeah. Kia ora, Deloraine. Yep, I'll come back to you, Mayor Smith. So it was Councillor Clendon, I think, who. Are you there, David? Kia ora.
Yes, just a minor layout. If Mayor Smith wants to just react to those other comments, that's fine first.
Okay.
Looks like he's present. Hey, I'll just jump in there. Look, just a very minor layout question. I'm just, according to the version we have, the executive summary is placed ahead of the forward, which is, in my mind, back to front. Normally the forward describes the sort of the purpose of the document, what it's about, why you should be interested, whereas the executive summary is just that, a summary of content. So purely for, I don't know, technical reasons, I think I would imagine the forward should go in advance of the executive summary rather than the other way around. I'm a bit pedantic, I know, but let's get it right.
Yep, kia ora. I think that's a fair comment. Jan, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't know. I tend to agree with it personally, because when I saw it, I thought, I would put it the other way around. But I think it was set as the document developed, and we just ran with it, so to speak. But it's not an issue. We can change it around if the committee wants to do that. I'm happy to do that, of course.
I personally would support it. I didn't think, I wasn't going to raise it, but I noticed the same thing, Councillor Clendon. So I'm supportive of you at the staff level, Jan, having a korero about that
Okay.
order. And I'll come back to you, Mayor Smith. Sorry.
Kia ora. So just speaking to Deloraine's point here about on the same page, about the authors piece and how how our mana whenua representatives here were selected and came to be around this table contributing so wonderfully. I would like there to be a bit more description here, which was a bit about that process, about how the mana whenua representatives kind of self-selected, came forward and then were endorsed by the councils into the joint council process. Yeah. So that sorry, and where I'm coming from here, ngā whaia, is protecting everyone here regarding anyone coming in from the outside and saying, why is that person on this? How did that happen? How did that person's name get to be there representing that, representing the rohi? How, yeah, because we don't want any of that raru. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my perspective, but again, so some description of that endorsement process, because I remember how sensitively Kaipara District Council took that matter, the quiet discussions that took place with our mana whenua leaders to find the people who would be coming through, and then there was in a council paper which endorsed that. Yay. And so here we go. Yeah. And so I would just like a bit more description just to make it all safe for everyone. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I think that's a really good point. And again, I guess I would just defer to staff to come up with some wording that fairly briefly summarises that process and just shows that it was a formal process. And I do support that, Ms. Smith, because I think this concept of 50-50 around the table with our treaty partners is a really important one now and into the future. So the more we can sort of demonstrate how we are doing that and what's involved in getting us to this point is useful, I think. So I totally with that. I'll let you respond. Delaraine, do you want to have a kōrero and then I'll let Jan respond?
I see Anna was ahead of me.
Oh, kia ora, Anna.
Kia ora. Yeah, I just want to back up there what Mayor Jason was saying, because I think it's a really important point. When I read about the authors, we've got a joint working group made up of staff from all four councils. But for me, when I read the comma as well as hapu and iwi representatives, it sounds as if, that has been tacked on at the end. So I think what you just said, Amy, actually summed it up really beautifully, because you said, it's a partnership between council and our treaty partners. So I think, if we can find some wording to make it a bit, to really reflect how important the process is for all of us and how much respect it deserves, I think we should outline that. I'm also supportive of moving the forward before the executive summary. I think that could be great, because for me the executive summary gives it that really personal touch. When you read, when it has your name, Amy, and it has Delaraine's name, for me that's a really, really important, that you guys are the representatives of our committee. And I think having that personal touch at the beginning, for me, really draws the reader into the document. And I just want to say congratulations to you and Delaraine on completing your statements there. I really enjoyed reading them. Thanks, everybody.
Kia ora. Thank you, Anna. That's really helpful feedback. I might go to Fiona and then come to you, Jan. If that's, Delaraine next and then Fiona. Sorry, go Delaraine. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Anna, for those words. And I just want to say that as a hapu member on this joint committee, it's really important that we do have the equity across our iwi and hapu, in contrast to some committees where we don't have the same degree of equity and working with our councils. So I'm very happy that we do have that and use this as a measure for how committees work best for us here in Taitokero. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Delaraine. Fiona.
Kia ora, aroha mai. I just, from now that I've had a sort of a think about and listening to the kōrero and that 50-50 equity, I'm glad that Has Worshipped has raised that there was a process that was involved. And that process, if I can just highlight, did limit our mana whenua to one representative on this tepu, which although we were able to sort out who was doing what and who was backing up the other, I think it's really good to highlight that that process had to take place, that there was only one representative able to be on the tepu, and that sort of limits the, hey, how come they're there and we're not? Although us in Te Roroa, you know, we're kei te pai, and Kaipara District Council also has to deal with Ngāti Manuhiri as well. We sort of want to clarify that that's how the process took place. So I'm actually really happy if that's appendiced, or there's an appendice to describe that process. Yeah.
Kia ora, Fiona, thank you for that. So yeah, and I guess wondering what your response is, and then I guess just getting some guidance on what is possible in terms of making some final minor adjustments to that final draft.
Like I said, the signature part is, I think, fairly straightforward. Just for clarity, I think it's a good point what Major Smith made, and it should be, just for clarification, that sits in the author section, is that correct? So I'm not quite sure who can write this, but we'll sort it out with the cat crew, so to speak. I'm just very wary at the moment of the Far North District Council. I don't know if Donald is online or not. They are imminently going out to council and the respective committee first. I think it's the Environment Committee first, and the council will fairly shortly, the next couple of weeks. So if we get this text, no, we will get this text together. What is the process of finalizing this, and how do you see, do we have to wait till the May committee again?
I'm hoping that possibly similar to last month, we made some minor amendments and then Delarraine and myself had a look at them. Okay. Is it possible? I'm not quite sure how we would word it in terms of the recommendations, but if we add it in there so that you could just do something via email, the CAT crew does the work.
Yes.
Because I think, you know, staff will absolutely understand the kōrero that they've just heard, and yes, then Delarraine and myself can just have a quick look over it. If but I don't know, are people comfortable with that? Yeah, that's a couple of thumbs up. Okay. I'm just going to have a look at the recommendation. Victoria, do you have any idea of how we can, sorry, how do we deal with this? Do you think we can amend that second recommendation? Or do we just maybe we need to make a third one? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we probably need to make a third one. Just outlining what the final changes are and how it will be endorsed by the committee.
Sorry, I'm just trying to look at everything. I feel like I need about 4 computers. I'm just wondering if, so it's page 20 of the agenda, but it's everything we're talking about is on that page, which is the signatory page, isn't it?
Yep. So adjust the hapu iwi signatory reference to include the council district, the same as it says Kaipara District, then Kaipara District hapu iwi, or NRC. Well, no, NRC won't be, but Far North and Whangarei District hapu iwi.
Yeah. So I'm going to read out what I think it could be. And I'm going to keep it really broad. So I would suggest a third recommendation, something along the lines of that further minor amendments are made as discussed, are made to the signatory page and signed off by the chair and deputy chair. Do we need to say exactly what those amendments are, or can we leave it at that high level?
Do you think, oh, sorry, I just wondered through the chair whether you wanted to just add about the explanation on how iwi reps were put forward to the committee. It might be just really good to be specific about that at this point.
Okay, cool.
That you're going to approve that, you know, through the same process of the chair and deputy chair to sign off that.
I'm just trying to think, does Erica, do you have, I'm not sure if you're feverishly trying to figure out how to get it in there.
Briefly add text regarding hapu iwi representation on the committee.
Oh, that's a good way to do it, because that can be both how we name them, you know, the naming that we're using in terms of using the additional word district, but also about
Process.
how the presentation came about. Okay, so I'm not quite sure I've got it right, but that further minor amendments be made regarding hapu/iwi representation on the committee and signed off by the deputy and the chair and deputy chair.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the chat. Looks like somebody's.
McDonald's.
Okay, he's just saying that if they are minor and they can be explained verbally. Yeah, I do believe that is the case. Okay, so the wording proposed is that further minor amendments are made regarding hapu and iwi representation on the committee and signed off by the chair and deputy chair. Does that sound okay to everybody? I think that from that we can encompass. Oh, here's Justin Murfitt. Thank you, Justin. You're going to help us?
Kia ora all. Yeah, I'll try. So what I'd suggest is that staff be endorsed to make the following changes to the strategy. 1, putting the forward before the executive summary. 2, adding district before whāngai, kaipara and far north hapu iwi. 3, adding some commentary in the author section on the selection of mana whenua or tangata whenua reps on the committee. And 4, that the changes be approved by the chair and deputy chair.
That sounds really good.
I would just add one more, and this is the version that version is the one that goes to councils for adoption.
Yeah.
Yay, I'm back.
Oh, kia ora, Anna, welcome back. I don't know how long you've been gone for, but we're still trying to work up our amended or additional resolution. Okay, I'm just writing that down so I can read it out one more time. But I think everyone, I feel like people are going to be happy with that because I think it was really well worded. Thank you, Justin. Okay. Because Erica, you're going to need to actually get this right for your minutes, aren't you? Okay, so I'll just read it out one more time, and then maybe Justin and myself, we can email through to Erica the wording that we have, so we get it right. Actually, Justin, do you just want to read yours one more time, and then yours will be the one, rather than me doing it too?
Sure thing. So the following minor changes are made to the strategy. 1, the forward is placed before the executive summary. 2, add district before whāngai, kaipara and far north hapu iwi on the signatory page. 3, in the author section, add some commentary on the selection process for mana whenua representatives rather. 4, the changes in relation to number 3 are approved by the chair and the deputy, and 5, that the amended version be recommended for adoption by councils.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Justin. That is extremely helpful. Okay, so I believe the original mover and seconder for the recommendation, which is in there, was it Fiona and Deloraine? Erica? Sorry, I don't think I wrote it down.
Oh, it wasn't me.
Was it Mayor Smith?
Fiona and Mayor Smith, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great.
It was you. So I guess so if we go back to page 16, yeah, we just Fiona and Mayor Smith, are you guys happy to add an additional recommendation, which would be recommendation 3, and that is what Justin has just read out for us, and he will email that to Erica so her record is consistent with what you've just heard. Thank you, Fiona. That's a thumbs up from you. Are you comfortable with that, Mayor Smith?
Yes, I'm not exactly certain on the ordering of Justin's words, because it should be, for example, Whangarei District, Hapu Iwi, should be the outcome that we're headed for. Yeah, not District Whangarei. So I'm not sure exactly on the wording, Justin.
What I heard was that district would go before Hapu Iwi. I'll just check that.
Yeah. So, but what is in the proposed motion?
That was the idea, that the signatory page referred to, well, it could be worded either way. Whangarei District, Hapu Iwi, Kaipara District, Hapu Iwi.
And Far North District, Hapu Iwi.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yep.
Yes. So that, I mean, sorry, that's it. I'm just seeking clarification here, because the way you were talking earlier was that you said that the word district would go before the words Whangarei Hapu Iwi.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And it goes into the middle. That's what I'm saying. It's not before, it's into
Yes.
the middle. Yeah,
Yes.
just for
Yep.
absolute clarity.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct. Yep.
So we're just all on the same page. Yes, but happy, perfectly happy. Yeah, kia ora, thank you.
Okay, so we've got our mover and our seconder, and so I'll just check that we're all in favour. If you can give me an eye or a thumbs up.
Aye from Anna.
Kia ora, thank you. Thanks, David. Awesome. Kia ora. Okay, thank you. That is carried. Whew. All right. Good work, guys. And I think those are some really good, small but actually quite significant little changes there, which will improve the document a lot. Okay. Fiona, have you got your hand up to speak now? Yep, kia ora.
yeah, aroha mai, through the chair. I just have to put in my apologies. Snow is here to take over for the Kaipara District Hapu and Iwi. So sorry, I'll have to vacate. I have other kaupapa to do. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Fiona, thank you very much for your time. I know everybody's super busy, so thank you very much for being here. And kia ora, Snow, thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 6.3, and it's quite a few pages down. It's on page 82 of the agenda. Peer review of the joint strategy. So I might just take the first recommendation that we received the report, and then Justin can speak to it, and then we'll go to his second recommendation. So just if I can have a mover and second to receive the report.
I'm happy to move that we receive the report.
Thank you, Anna. And seconded by I will second it. Seconded by Amy. All in favour, say aye. Cool. Anyone against? Okay, that's carried. So thank you. Yeah, I'll take it as read, but Justin, I think it'd be really helpful if you could speak to this just briefly, and then we can look at that second recommendation. Kia ora.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so just quickly, the strategy has been peer reviewed by Dr. Judy Lawrence, a quite renowned expert in climate change adaptation. The purpose was to get her views on whether the strategy would be an effective tool for adaptation in the context of what we're dealing with in Northland, and whether the strategy can be monitored for effectiveness in adapting to climate change impacts. So that was the key sort of things we were after from the review. I must say the review was quite positive. There's quite a lot in there that's complementary, and there's often words used like exemplar for other regions and the like. So that's really pleasing. And I think another theme that came out was that this approach that's been adopted in Northland is a really, she's quite complimentary of that as well. The review in full is attached. Some of the key points are summarised in the paper. So overall, and I won't dwell on each of them, but I'll pick out some of the sort of more important ones, I think. Overall, she had some commentary around the vision, mission, and objectives are all sound. She did suggest perhaps the words resilient to climate change could be teased out a bit further. So it's about what that means. Resilient sort of suggests, I think, from my reading of it, is quite rigid, but adaptive might be a better term given the intent of the strategy is around adaptation. The strategy itself is a good method for achieving consistency and sort of cost effective in the terms that all the councils are considering each other's approaches using the similar tools and information base. So that's, I think, one of the key things is that this was a great idea to get us all on the same page and thinking in the same way and using the same things, best bang for buck, if you like. Some words around keeping flexibility, because this is very much a changing situation, not just legislatively, policy direction from government, but also as we learn more. So I think that's a key theme. It's all very well having a strategy. I think I'm just paraphrasing here, but it's implementation and prioritising of actions is going to be key. I think she was quite used some quite pointy language around water resilience, how we deal with water, because it's quite an important factor. While a lot of the focus on adaptation is around hazards, natural hazards, which are often about too much or too little water. But I think there's some key things in here about water that we might want to consider at a later date. But and around potable water supplies and access to water. The strategy itself, again, being fleet of foot and being able to be fleet of foot in terms of how we deliver it and what we deliver on. So it's about, do we need to change actions and what processes we use to do that and to actually consider the risks and all that. So just keeping flexibility, I think, is one of the key things in here. Consistent approaches and methodologies and assessment tools. I think she's strong on that as well. She has some suggestions around how we might beef things up a little bit. For example, we highlighted that the need for more government direction is a risk, and she suggests we should actually add some commentary on what would help address that risk. She also mentions there's RMA provisions that could be better utilised. Now, while I understand what she's saying, that's quite a convoluted process. Plan changes are needed. And I think while we've got some of those underway, each of the district councils are updating their district plans to have hazard provisions and maps are included. That's on its own track. There's also going to be some regulatory things coming out of, potentially out of local adaptation planning. So that's a sort of an ongoing exercise, and we're as part of the whole package of this adaptation strategy, we're identifying a bit of a toolkit for what tools are available, either RMA, local government, or non-regulatory kind of actions that will help us in that adaptation, local adaptation planning process. So I think it might not be that apparent in the strategy itself, but there's definitely initiatives underway there. So yeah, that toolbox, she would not have seen that, but it is in development. She also mentioned some risk about overemphasising nature-based solutions and the expectations that might bring. Again, I think that's a matter of horses for courses, where we can get into local planning about how those might be useful, but it's certainly something we have in the toolbox, and I understand the word of caution that she's got there. What else? Sort of planning for the planning, if you like. So what, again, that toolbox will be fundamental. What options have we got? How effective are they going to be in each situation? And I guess having the regulatory tools or the local government tools being as nimble as possible is going to help. Again, a lot of that regulatory stuff is process bound and has its own legal requirements to meet. Water availability issues, again, she's mentioned that's quite stark in the risk assessment and the strategy itself. So one of the key recommendations that I really took out of it was a plan for water resilience and water use, and assembling the science that goes with that. So knowing where we're potentially going to run into water, adequacy supply problems or demand problems or what have you, and planning around that for the future, I think, is a key one. It's not a simple thing of just adding a line or two. That's quite complex, and there is a bit of science to be undertaken first. But yeah, I think that's one of the key points I took out of it. Another one was how the reviews are undertaken. She suggested we might have some commentary about the process for doing that. The adaptation profiles, she mentioned, are particularly useful for identifying priorities for action, and the methodologies is an exemplar for other regions. She did have some cautionary wording around making it clear for decision makers that inundation isn't something that's just going to occur in the future, say 2080, that we're going to hit sort of issues around coastal inundation, particularly earlier than that, and we should be thinking about it. We can't just fend off those decisions, the hard decisions that are coming now. And she's got some suggestions about how we might do that. Priority actions, she mentioned that was kind of static, and it may need to be a bit more of a dynamic approach, and particularly how they interrelate. Again, yeah, we need to, I think the strategy does recognise that, but we may need to just, there might be a more frequent minor review perhaps that addresses some of that. The rest, the only one that really, oh yeah, most of the actions relate to getting more information and developing community engagement and doing the local adaptation planning. But she suggested some more actions around developing planning and monitoring frameworks and prioritising administration processes. Climate risk overview, she mentioned, was thorough. Interactions between agencies and their responsibilities might need to be clearer. And there are different agencies with different responsibilities listed in the overview. Might need a bit more of a detail on that. The language, she also mentioned, assumes a protect type of adaptation, and this could be misunderstood. So there's potentially some rewording there. Now, I didn't quite understand this comment, but she said the notes on Māori impacts seem counterintuitive, and the text talks about prioritising Māori vulnerability, yet there is the intention not to do an adaptation implementation plan. So I think she just sought some clarification about what is the approach there. Impact chains were useful, but they're light on governance implications. So there may be some further work we could do on the governance side of things and how they impact on governance, or how climate risks and impacts impact on governance. So there's the interdependencies, interactions between risks often come back to an impact on governance or a risk to governance. Decision makers are at the forefront of this, so I think that's probably a good point. So overall, very useful review, and some food for thought there for sure, but in my view at least, nothing urgent, dire or damning in the way of emissions, or that would suggest we need to rewrite some of the major components of the strategy. So the recommendation here is that we don't undertake a review in response to the peer review at this point, largely because there are also things pending, and quite soon, things from central government, particularly emissions reduction plan and national adaptation plans as well. So the suggestion is that we take these comments on board, perhaps work up some text and changes that would be built into a wider review of the strategy later this year, when we've got a bit more clarity. I note the Natural and Built Environment Act and Strategic Planning Act bills are going to be introduced this year, and they also will have implications for what we do on the adaptation front. So I think rather than take another amendment of the strategy at this point, let's get it across the line with councils, and then we can do a wider review when some of the sort of significant government direction comes our way. And that's, I guess, the summary from me, and myself and others in the team can take questions.
Sure, thank you, Justin. Yeah, really helpful to have your speaking to that. I could see Mayor Smith nodding along, which is always good. I'll come to you in a moment, Deloraine. I just wanted to say, yeah, well done to the CAT crew, to the staff that have worked so hard to get us to this point, to have this peer review done and have you know, a lot of positive reinforcement for the strategy, and the way it's written is really great, and it's also really valuable to get those other perspectives and the critique, which can help us improve it into the future. So yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody, and yeah, give credit to the team that have got us here, and to have that independently reinforced by an expert is great. So Deloraine, I've seen you've made a comment, but yeah, if you can speak to it, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you, Justin. I've been a part of many of the team meetings and progressing this work, and congratulations to you all. It is a great piece of work, and a lot of work that's been done. I guess for us as tangata whenua, it's an imbalanced approach insofar as it lacks insight from mātauranga Māori, and we really need to have that. And I recognise that probably council aren't likely to be the people who can supply that level of expertise and advice, but I guess if we're going to talk about it at the beginning of the process, that this is going to be a balanced view, then we need to start, I guess, finding people and inviting that level of commentary, so that we have something that can work together, that can be complementary in the way that we then take the strategy out to our communities, to our hapu marae, around Tai Tokerau. So I'm just, I guess, and it's timely that I had a conversation with, I don't know if he's here, Peter, this week to remind us around what are we doing around Mātauranga Māori in the climate change space. So we have heard from people like Mike Smith, but we actually need to join some dots up around Mātauranga Māori to make a strong case that can then be considered alongside all of the great work that's been done by council staff. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Deloraine. Justin, I don't know if you want to respond to that just in terms of the broader review process. I don't know if that process is set out yet. Do you have any comment for Deloraine?
I can try and respond. Yeah, I understand the point completely. It is very much missing that perhaps tangata whenua perspective on the strategy. It was in, I guess, the nature of a technical, almost an academic review. Is this fit for purpose for what council was doing? I don't think, I'm not sure we'd have this capacity or that, well, not the capacity, the capability of the knowledge to do it justice from a, obviously from a Māori perspective, so potentially be outsourced. And maybe that's something we try and achieve prior to the broader review of the strategy later in the year. If that's what the council, the committee would like us to do. I'm not sure, I wouldn't have a clue how much time that would take. Probably take advice from Deloraine on that one, and what sort of scope you might, how you might scope that. But yeah, it sounds like something that would be useful.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, I don't know if you want to respond to that, Deloraine. I'm not quite sure where we leave this. I guess knowing that the review is happening later this year, maybe we can ask for an update on the review process at a subsequent meeting, and that we kind of tease out and ask staff to tease out what the opportunity is for Mātauranga Māori and the Māori perspective to be part of that review.
I'd really like to have the opportunity to speak with the people from the Kaipara, people from the far north, for example, iwi hapu from there, to see who we can identify as a team who can do that piece of work, Snow?
Yeah, no, tautoko Deloraine, I think there are some Mātauranga experts in tautokiro that we rely on from time to time, and I'm pretty sure that they can assist us in this space.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Okay, so maybe Erica, we can just have an action point that we ask staff to come to a future meeting with an item around the review process, and as part of that, the element of the Māori perspective and Mātauranga Māori can be part of the discussion. Understanding, yeah, that, you know, all our usual constraints around capacity and capability, but I think, yeah, I agree, Deloraine, that it's an important, you know, that's why we're here and that's why we've got you at the table, is we need to reflect that in all of the work that we do. So yeah, kia ora. If you can keep that as an action point, Erica, then we can look to staff to how we pursue that. Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just in the same space, yes, I completely tautoko the idea of the inclusion of Mātauranga Māori in this document. I'm aware that it's complex to get that information, and there may be what I'll call intellectual property issues around that knowledge not wanting to be shared, possibly, and you know, kapai, if that is so, you know, or ketapai. The point that I'm making here, the bigger point, I guess, is this is a living document, and it will never be finished. And it will never be resolved, and it will never be concluded, and it will keep changing and changing and changing and changing over time. And so the ink will never be dry on this. And it's really important that everyone leans into this opportunity in that way. with the review processes ahead, with including Mātauranga Māori, and with the public, we've talked about, if you like, public consultation and engagement with this work, and all of those opportunities are part of a rolling story that will just keep rolling, rather than going, here it is, it's now locked and that's it, everyone go home now. That's not the tool that we're creating here. We're creating something with which everyone needs to be participating and sharing, and people feeling accountable to each other, and owning and appreciating and feeling the sense of guidance and some leadership in this space. That's what we're trying to do, but that's a rolling story that will change and change. So with that, literally like the adaptation, with that kind of adaptability in mind, I think it's really important that we lean into all of these opportunities as this work proceeds. So I'm in full support of this, but I'm just reminding everyone, especially as Justin said, regarding the legislation, could completely sledge all of this work sideways. Who knows? I mean, who knows? We're not going to know. We can't know yet. So we cross that bridge as we come to it. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I think, yeah, certainly is a space where there's plenty of uncertainty. But one of the messages that I kept sort of getting from the review was that we need to work with the tools we have at the moment and use our best science and our best knowledge and capability, and just be able to kind of pivot and grow as that evolves. And so certainly not a matter of waiting for clarity, because I don't know if we'll ever quite get 100% clarity. So yeah, really supportive. Okay, Anna, kia ora.
Oh, kia ora. Yeah, really interesting. And we probably all listened to the author on RNZ the other day. So thank you, Justin, for your comments. I guess, like, when I read the report, what keeps being reinforced to me is the fact that our councils already can actually, you know, be more proactive. There are planning instruments that we can use to be more proactive. And it's really interesting, if you look on page 93, she makes a comment. I've got a question on this, because she says 6.3, this is on page 93. Additionally, another first priority could be to ensure the planning instruments reflect the strategy to reduce climate change risk. So I guess for me, the question is, so she's done a review of the strategy, which is great. When, and I can't remember on our action timetable or our list of priority actions, actually reviewing each council's own planning processes to see, you know, what can we bring forward? What can we do to be more proactive? Can staff just remind me, you know, yeah, where we're up to with that and where that fits in the timeline?
I can have a go if you like to.
Thank you, Justin.
So there's already action underway at each district around particularly hazard management, which has always been a bit of a focus, but we now have updated river flood mapping and coastal inundation mapping provided by NRC that is now in process of being embedded into district plans with associated provisions, largely directed by regional policy statement, which says, you know, you should try and avoid putting stuff in dumb places in plain English. So that's in process now. Kaipara has done a whole bunch of spatial planning, local spatial planning, and is in the process of developing a new district plan. Far North is in a similar place, and Whangarei District has a quite slightly different approach to their plan reviews. They have a rolling review, and I understand natural hazard management and the maps and provisions that go with that are at the priority list. So they're underway. There's also, but they're bound by process. They've got to go through Schedule 1 RMA, you know, draft out and submissions and hearings and then potentially appeals, which does tend to be slow, but we can't control that process. It's got to go through its hoops set under the RMA. But there's also the local planning equation as well, which may not rely so much on the regulatory stuff, which can be a bit more nimble, provided you got the resourcing. And we need to be careful if there are sort of adaptation measures that local communities want to take, that we go in there with upfront debate around what it might cost and how long it might take and who pays and the like. So there's non-regulatory adaptation measures are a bit more nimble, but they often come with cost, infrastructure costs or what have you. The regulatory one, we don't have control over the process. That has got to go through its plan change. But the provisions that perhaps might go with those hazard maps, for example, could have some kind of, I don't know, future-proofing or proactive kind of adaptive management response built in. It's quite tricky and it's not been done well. But there are, I guess, signals you can send around managed retreat, for example, in a plan change. Again, hasn't been used that effectively as I understand it in an RMA planning context to date. But I guess the short story there is we're underway. The districts are going through their process now. Also mention our regional policy statement, which sets most of that sort of policy direction around climate change hazards, is under a 5-year review, and that might point to some things we could do differently as well. Again, that changes to that would have to go through a RMA Schedule 1 process. So the other thing, as I mentioned, we're developing a toolbox that perhaps I don't think Dr. Lawrence saw, but that lists a whole bunch of regulatory options that we've got, mostly RMA, but also around perhaps Public Works Act, some of those tools, local government mechanisms we could potentially use, and then the non-regulatory suite as well. And then there's like things like infrastructure change or levels of service change for infrastructure, signaling that quite strongly through asset management plans. So there's a whole bunch of tools we've got. But I think the idea would be to, once we've got that toolbox set up, I think we should present it to this committee, and that should be part of how we socialise adaptation planning, I think. So go to the community when we're a bit further down the track and say, hey, look, here are some of the options we've got, here's some of the tools, and that can be also built into our local adaptation planning. Sorry, long-winded ramble is an answer, but hopefully there's some insight in there.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. That's really good. And I know there are so many things to pick out. It's an interesting report. And I guess for me, yeah, that toolbox idea is fabulous. That's the kind of thing I think that I'm so pleased to hear that is happening in the background. And wouldn't it be fabulous to get Judy to come up here and just kind of talk through all of this stuff? Because I think, you know, having think tanks and just having more discussions about, like, she raises so many interesting points in her report, and it would be great to just have the time and the space to kind of sit down informally and just and talk through it. Maybe that's something that some people in the committee would like to think about doing. But no, really, I really appreciate your comments, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. These are good questions coming from somebody who's not feeling 100%. Very impressive. Okay, so I think I'm just going to find the right spot, sorry, on the agenda, and we just need, there's a remaining recommendation there around the, sorry, just finding it. So on page 82, still on item 6.3, just the second recommendation is that the committee agrees to incorporating the findings of the peer review into a wider review of the strategy later this year. And that's once pending central government initiatives are available. You know, things like the National Adaptation and Emissions Reduction Plans, and Justin also mentioned some other legislation which is underway. So just having had that conversation, Anna, your hand is still up. Is that a new comment?
Whoops, no, sorry, no, I'll take it down.
That's all good. Just looking for a mover and a seconder for that second recommendation. can't see anybody. I'll move it. So moved by Amy and seconded by.
I'll second, Amy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Kendon. Cool. And so all in favour? Thank you. Kia ora, Snow. Thank you. Anyone against? Cool. So that's carried. Now, I see, Ms. Smith, you are going to have to leave soon. How much longer have we got you for? I'm just wondering if we can discuss the supplementary item. You got to go now. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, yeah, kia ora. Oh, no, he was just waving. Sorry, I thought he wanted to speak. Kia ora, Delarang.
Hi, I want to add an additional recommendation regarding mātauranga, and I wonder that it might come under what is provided for under 5.7.1 as an additional project. Sorry, 5.8.1. Possible projects such as that it could be another project in terms of giving us the opportunity to gather the right informants to create. I guess it's going to be a response, a mātauranga response to climate change, and then see how those can come together. In the first instance, it's 5.8.1. If that's appropriate to put it under that, Justin. To create a project together, mātauranga informants to lead a project on mātauranga and climate change.
Kia ora, Delarang. We can't, so that report that's in there is the report from the expert reviewer, so we can't add anything to that.
Yeah.
But what and I think I captured it in an action, and just tell me if an action isn't adequate, but if we get an action, like I said to Erica, that'll go into the action sheet for our next meeting, and then staff will have a chance to go away and work it up. And I might just maybe add, Erica, that maybe staff can contact Delarang if they want any clarity or conversation about, yeah, I guess what I think I understand from our earlier kōrero, Delarang, and I'm confident staff will, but just if we can add in the action that Delarang can be a point of contact if any clarity is needed. Is that okay, Delarang?
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. I'm sure there's Snow, there's Fiona, myself, that we can all work together on that.
Yeah, kia ora. And I agree, we don't want it to get lost, so it's good to make sure it goes on the record and can be responded to. So thank you. Okay, so just checking who we've still got. We're still all right, aren't we, Victoria? You can keep an eye. Yep, we've still got our quorum. Okay. So we will move on to item 6.4. And I was just going to bring the supplementary item at the end. So I'm just hoping everyone can stay, but we're well within time right now. So item 6.4, the update on branding and identity process, including the snapshot. And this has come from Mary, and there's just a recommendation here that we receive the report. So is somebody happy to move that and second that? And then I'll hand over to Mary to give us a bit of an update. Thank you, Delarang. Moved by Delarang.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Anna. Kia ora. Okay, and so all in favour?
Aye.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thanks, Snow. Anyone against? That is carried. Okay.
I'm sorry, Amy, not against, but I just would like to comment. There's a sort of provisional or estimated date of July this year to have the work completed and the launch.
Yeah.
I'd really encourage that being a firm date. But, I mean, it's important that we get it right, but it's also important that we advance the work and get the general community on side and raise awareness and all of those things that are necessary to actually get the real work done. And frankly, it is possible to overthink these things a little bit. And I'm sure the group's very keen to get it right, but I would like to see a firm commitment to having it available to launch no later than July this year. That's 4 months away, and I would have thought that we could get the thing done and dusted by then. But otherwise, you risk, it becomes August, September, suddenly you're into a whole new ball game. So I'd really like a commitment to have it done in July at latest.
Okay. Yeah, kia ora, David, and I understand that. Yeah, I think we all want to get things moving for sure. So we received the item, and so I might hand over to Mary if you want to just. I'll take it as read. So the report has been read. Mary, I think you're there. Yes, you are. Wonderful. I'll let you speak to it, and then you can maybe also respond to David's comment, and then I'll just see if there are any other questions. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Emma from WDC is also here, and she'll be able to speak to this item as well, as we all work very closely together. So a brief rundown of the item. We had our workshop at Hihiawa Cultural Centre on January 26th. It was a wonderful group of wahine toa, and we had a really productive discussion on identifying more closely the values and goals of the climate adaptation group, how we hope to empower communities, and thinking more deeply about the different views people hold on climate change. So the branding agency level, the person who's leading that work is called Katie. So for the sake of clarity, because there's also a Katie at Kaipara District Council, I'll refer to Katie from Level as Level Katie. One of the main things that we identified in the workshop was a need to identify what the most appropriate purakau were, or Māori stories were, to share around climate change. When Level Katie led us through what she did with the Kaipara Moana remediation program, it became very clear that there were lots of different ways in which Te Ao Māori was built into the imagery that was used, the colours that were used, things like that. And it became clear to us that we needed to identify which purakau were safe and appropriate to share with the wider community. So Justice Heteraka was there, and forgive me if I get this wrong as to who brought up the idea, but we essentially decided that we needed a bit more time to consult with tohunga in the area to figure out what is appropriate to share. So that process is, Level Katie has been in contact with Justice and Rebecca Reid, and is talking about what form that might take, whether it's a visit with Katie, Justice, Rebecca and the tohunga, or it's some sort of slightly more public arena as an engagement tool. Although since that happened, Omicron has gotten even worse, and we're now very hesitant to bring a lot of people together for everyone's safety, but especially for people, older kuia or kamatua who might be more vulnerable. So that discussion is ongoing. So we, at the comms group, we decided to update the timeline. It was when we spoke to you, Emma and I spoke to you in November, we'd said that we felt like it wasn't totally ideal to launch the strategy when we didn't have the branding and identity nailed down, but we felt we could go forward anyway. But now we've realized that to tell the story well the first time around is something we really want to do, and so we feel like it's really worth delaying the larger public facing launch of the strategy until the branding mahi is done. Emma, would you like to say anything else around that?
Yeah, kia ora tātou. Apologies for not having my camera on. I'm not actually sure, my internet isn't playing ball today, so I'm just scraping by. Just like to acknowledge Councillor Clendon's concerns. That's something we are
we're looking into as well. That July date is a loose date. If it can happen earlier, that would be wonderful. Our thinking is, rather than rolling out a media campaign with placeholder branding and running the risk of alienating or offending our working partners, we do recommend that we wait for the branding and identity work to reach its natural conclusion. It isn't a tick box exercise. It's much, much deeper than that. This way we can align our public release with the go live of the website and have all the moving parts working in harmony. And that's ideally what we're trying to capture with the release of the strategy and the media coverage. So we do have that loose date of July. We're hoping that it'll happen faster than that, but it's an unknown at this point. So Councillor Clendon, I do recognise what you're saying, and we are keeping that in the forefront of our minds as well. I hope that answers the questions. Are there anyone else I can help?
Any other questions? Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Mary. Yep, kia ora, Councillor Murphy.
Kia ora. Yeah, I just want to say something that has been on my mind a lot lately, and that is about the power of the word, which sounds really weird, but when we look at what's been happening, what's happening around the world and what's happened in Wellington, I think we really have to understand how important and powerful words are and how important communication is. And you just, I think, to take the time to really think it through and think about the pūrākau and like Emma said, just give it the time that it needs so that it could all come together in the right way is really, really important. Because really, yeah, communicating this mihi is key. It's really the key to all the work that's going to flow on from our strategy. So I just want to say, acknowledging what Councillor Clendon said, I think it's really important that, yeah, we just go with the flow, and I'm happy to. I just really take on board what Emma was saying, and I'm really excited about when it is all ready to come out. It's going to be amazing, and I know you're going to just do it the justice it deserves. So thank you. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora, Anna. Thank you for that contribution. Any other comments or questions? So I guess we have another meeting in May, so we can have an update then, Mary, on progress and how you're feeling about those indicated timelines. Knowing, yeah, on balance, there's both reasons to, you know, be slower and more thorough, but then also to try and reach that end point. So I'm comfortable with you guys just progressing as per, you know, you've set out here, and that we can just hear again from you in May. So I can just see that somebody's put a chat in, so I'm just going to have a quick look at that. Delaraine, do you want to speak to this, Delaraine?
Yeah, kia ora, Amy. So all I'm saying is that the good work that's been done under the branding section, the connection contact with tohunga, I think could also contribute to what needs to be our mātauranga perspective to balance the strategy and action plans going forward. So that would mean contractually a whole lot of things need to happen, but I'm just putting the suggestion there. Justin, still there, Justin? Can't see Justin. Yeah, I'm just putting the suggestion there that this might be a natural way to start and have contact with people on the ground, and then to be able to scope and define what that will become to be able to create the project. So it's an add-on, an extension, if you will, of the work that started by the branding, but needs to be continued in another way. If that makes sense.
Yep, Bernadette, kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. I thought it might be a lot helpful for everybody to have a bit of background as to why we're referring to these amazing wahine, Ripeka Reid and Justice Hetaraka. So Ripeka is one of the core members of our project team working on the Te Ao Māori decision-making framework for local government. So that is one of the key actions dropping out of our priority list, our mega to-do list. And that is sort of, we've got that project at a stage where we have a draft consultation summary or engagement summary report that's in review. Ripeka has been a fundamental part of that team, helping us with our communication and our research methodology. She has the experience of being mentored by one of our most important knowledge holders or tohunga in the region, being Papariri Ata Makiha. And communicating with rangatahi and with our communities is one of the many things that she has within her school base. Same with Justice Hetaraka. She is the mokopuna of Papa Te Warahi Hetaraka. So again, another important knowledge holder within Te Tai Tokoro and within the nation, really. They have environmental kaupapa very close to their heart. They understand the pūrākau that are important when talking about the environment, when talking about people. They understand how to communicate that safely. They understand, I guess, how mahi toi art, imagery, components of the environment need to be represented in a safe way, which contributes to, of course, branding. And they have been working with us across sort of more than one climate change project. So it made sense that when getting their guidance on communicating climate change on one project, we've also got their guidance on communicating about climate change in the overall realm. They're also helping us with preparing essentially a climate change event for tangata whenua in Te Tai Tokoro. And that is, again, an action that came out of some of the research work that we've managed to get some funding for as part of this project. And don't worry, we'll have some imagery to help people navigate themselves across the many projects that we're doing at the moment. But essentially, it's about getting the people with the right skills across the many projects so that we're being consistent, we're being safe, we're being well informed, and it makes sense to those we're communicating with. Yeah. Kia ora. Oh, sorry, one more thing on Deloraine's point. Yes, absolutely. The mahi that we're doing with Justice and Ripeka will feed into our Te Ao Māori decision-making framework. It will feed into this work and absolutely should contribute to that review that we're wanting to do towards the end of the year. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Bernadette. Thank you. That's really helpful to hear a little bit more context about the people. And yeah, I think one of the challenges we always have is that we need to break the work down into pieces to make it manageable. But obviously with something like climate change and climate change adaptation, it's just sort of across everything in a really complicated way, but also provides a really cool opportunity for us to be, I guess, cross-pollinating and finding lots of synergies. So yeah, really support tautoko what you said, Delorraine, about how these conversations in kōrero in one context are really important to other aspects of the work that we've discussed today. So yeah, I feel really confident that we've got really good staff, the CAT crew, who are working together and able to make those connections as well as connecting in with us. So yeah, just really supportive of it all. So I guess the only question I had just for you, Mary and Emma, was just around, because this piece of work has evolved somewhat since we first sort of had the idea of having a subcommittee, and fully support it, just wanting to check in that you guys have got the support you need, I guess, from in terms of the joint committee membership and governance involvement. Are you happy, and will you just kind of communicate with us if things come up that you'd like us. There was talk about, you know, you don't know what you're doing quite yet, but there might be other workshops or sessions. And are you expecting that you'll just kind of communicate with us around if you have any needs from us?
Yes, well, that's what we're expecting to do once Level Katie and Justice and Repika have worked through what they're doing, and the people at Level have worked up a few options. They'll come back to the members of the Branding and Identity workshop. It will probably be an online meeting this time, given the current situation, and talk through the options and then make progress that way. So I think Emma and I will continue communicating with the Branding and Identity subgroup, and we'll come back to you and or the Joint Committee in May if we need anything else apart from that.
Okay, cool. And I'm happy to just be hearing an update after you guys have done the work, but I am just mindful that we don't have an NRC representative from governance in that group. So if you guys want to have a chat about that as part of, you know, looking at the next steps and just thinking about how that branding and identity subgroup looks and how it's going to be functioning, I'm really happy if you want to come back around that, whether it's important that we have membership from each council. I'm not sure. But yeah, just happy for you to have a consider of that, and you can let us know if you want to change it in any way.
Okay. Do you have a strong feeling either way on that, Amy?
Personally, I don't mind. I actually trust the people that are there. I guess it's just making sure if the kaupapa has kind of grown a little bit in terms of where it's going, which I do absolutely support, just making sure yeah, everybody is across it. But we've got the NRC staff there, so that's what gives me confidence. But yeah, just happy to be included if needed, but right now happy to leave it as it stands.
Okay, thanks. We'll discuss that.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so I think we're done with that unless there are any other questions for Mary and Emma while they are with us. Thank you very much, guys. Looks like a really cool piece of work, and I've been involved in the Kaipara Moana remediation project, so I've seen how yeah, powerful the work can be when it's done in a really thoughtful way. And yeah, so just really excited actually about those next steps. Look forward to getting an update next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thanks everybody.
Kia ora. Oh, Amy, did you want to, does there need to be another recommendation to, no, that's all right.
I think everyone's happy with how it's there. So no, I think we're all good. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Kia ora.
Okay, and so I'm just going to move to the supplementary item, and I'm hoping everybody who is on here has it in their email. And I'm mindful that Mayor Smith has had to leave the meeting, but Victoria assures me we still have quorum, so we will have the discussion and then take it from there. So hopefully everybody has got a copy of this in their email. It's supplementary item 6.1, I believe. That's how it is in my version. And it's additional amendment to Joint Climate Change Adaptation Committee terms of reference. And so this we discussed a little bit when we tabled it as coming onto the agenda. So there are 3 recommendations. We've already received the item, but we need to receive the report. So I might just suggest that we do that first, and then we can have a quick korero and take it from there. So if I can have a mover and a seconder to receive the report, then we can discuss it. Kia ora, thank you, Snow. Moved by Snow.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Anna. Kia ora. And so all in favour. Kia ora, thank you, Deloraine. And those against? or any abstentions? I'm looking to you, David. Do you want to put it on the record what you want to do?
No, I'll wait for the discussion.
Okay.
This is a slightly different process, sort of voting on receiving documents before we've discussed them, but that's your choice. That's fine. So I'll just sit quiet.
Okay. All right. So on that, we can then have a discussion. I'm assuming, Victoria, are you happy to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this supplementary item, again, apologies for the late receiving of this, and it does happen very rarely, and yeah, we understand that it's not best practice. The opportunity came that the information needed to be included in the tour. We received the information late last week and the agenda had already gone out. But with the opportunity with the tour being on the agenda, thought that we could use that opportunity just to table this item as a supplementary item. So this is around the Joint Committee not being discharged during the triennial elections period. And some of the joint committees across the councils are covered by legislation currently, and so they don't get discharged during that period. But the Joint Committee for Climate Change doesn't have legislation to cover it for that. So by inclusion of the statement as per the agenda item in the terms of reference, then it would be covered for this coming year and moving on forward from that for future years. So the statements outlined in the agenda item for the Joint Committee not to be discharged at triennial elections and just needs to be added into the terms of reference. I also just wanted to make note around the recommendations that have been put forward, and that because we had changed the one for adopting the terms of reference in item 6.1, that we could consider, the council committee would, Joint Climate Change Committee would consider changing recommendation 3 as well on this particular item if it wanted to move it forward to match the one that was in item 6.1.
Sure, thanks, Victoria. Yep, that was going to be a comment from me, was that we could make the wording in number 3 consistent with the earlier recommendation, and just making it explicit that this does come to each of the member councils for their consideration before they adopt it. So I think, I guess for me, completely acknowledge that it's not best practice to bring things so late, but also quite keen to have the opportunity for this to go through the member councils, and that can be a place that it can be discussed further if needed in each of those councils. That's sort of a brief comment from me, but happy to hear from others or any questions to Victoria. No comments. Okay, so I've got to move it. So we've received the report, so that's recommendation 1 done. So recommendation 2 is that we endorse the addition of Joint Committee not discharged at triennial elections for inclusion in the committee terms of reference. And recommendation 3, I believe, would read, if it was revised, that the committee endorses hold on, I need to think about this. It's slightly different, isn't it? Did you have the wording in mind, Victoria?
Yeah. So I've got written down that the Joint Committee recommends the revised or the addition to the terms of reference be added and put to each member council for consideration and adoption.
Oh. Okay, so do we have a mover and seconder for those 2 recommendations? So maybe Victoria might need to read. Does anyone want to hear one more time from Victoria, or does everyone get that? If everyone thinks they've got it in hand. Oh, yep, David, I see you've turned on your
I'm just not quite sure of the necessity of that second part. If we're going to make this addition to what is effectively the draft terms of reference that we'll take to our councils, then it seems to be belt and braces to say it will be taken to our specific or our respective councils. I just don't understand the need for that second bit.
Yep, that's a good point. Victoria, would you be comfortable? Does that sound all right?
Yep.
Because I think, yeah, I agree with you, David. If we put it in, then yeah, in this meeting, then it can just go through as one document to the councils and be considered as per the earlier recommendation. So then we are only looking for a mover and seconder for recommendation 2 to get this through. Kia ora, Snow. Snow is happy to move that. I'm just looking for a seconder. I can second it, can't I? I'll second it. Seconded by Amy. And so yeah, I'll just check in with, make sure everybody individually I can see your support. So just all in favour. Kia ora, Snow. Kia ora, Anna. Kia ora, David. Kia ora, Delorraine. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, we do really understand that timeliness is really important, and we know how busy everybody is and how full everyone's calendars are. Not much time in between meetings. So yeah, appreciate your support for that item and trust that you can discuss it further at your respective councils if needed. Great. Is there anything else I need to do, Victoria? Are we done? I will. Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you very much to all our members and representatives, and also thank you so much to all the staff. Yeah, it's an incredibly busy time for everybody, professionally and personally, and a tad stressful, you know, a lot of people grappling with things on the home front. And so special ngā mihi nui to you, Anna, for joining us from your sick bed. It's been appreciated. So yeah, if there's no other items to be raised, I'll just close us with a karakia now. Okay, kia ora everybody. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui. Kia wātea, kia mana, te nāko, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takata. Koia rā I rongo, whakairea ake ki runga, kia tina, tina, huie, tae ki e. Kia ora koutou, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Lovely meeting to be part of.